Hello and welcome to Farm Uni and the next episode on Let's Talk Quality. Today I'm joined by one of the esteemed members of Zaman Farmer Support. We're going to dive deep into a bit of your background, how you got here today into quality, and in general the world of quality assurance in the life science industry. So, before we start, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role here at Zaman?
Yeah, thank you, Candice. I'm Eileen Nagel. I'm working as quality assurance specialist at Pharma Zaman Support and supporting the quality assurance department internally and externally in some projects.
And how long have you been working at Zaman now?
I started last year in March.
So it's almost been, it's been over a year.
Over a year.
And we didn't have cake for our anniversary. And we should do cake soon.
Cake is always a good
I will bring cake. I will get my mother to make cake and then I will bring cake. Because I don't know how to bake.
And her cakes are really delicious.
They're very good. It's a side plug. And what drew you to Zaman Farmer Support?
I'm working with the quality management system. I'm doing a lot of internal stuff like complaint management, deviation management, change controls, and try to support also some other colleagues, and also have some external projects where I am doing trainings for laboratory information management system, the so-called
LIMS.
Yes, the so-called LIMS. And it's really nice to have like this different tasks.
I think you've overly simplified it. I know Eileen does a whole lot more than that. I know that you started last year in March, but how did you find out about Zaman and what actually kind of enticed you to come and work for us?
This is a really, really nice story I always like to tell. It's about my experience when I started to search for a new job. I was not, I had the feeling that I cannot grow anymore in my previous job. And then I started to do my research. And one of the platforms I used was LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to look I did a master's in quality assurance. I worked previously in pharmacovigilance and I wanted to go back to quality again.
Yeah.
I missed that a bit. And then Fabio appeared in LinkedIn when I was searching for quality stuff. And then I was looking at Family, what the scope of this is. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. I would love that to have when I was a student.
Yeah.
To see some course and have then at the end certificates, because certificates are really, really important if you're doing some applications. And then I was do my research and saw that Summer Family Support was the company behind that.
Yeah.
And I saw some open positions at the quality department, and I thought, now I have to take my chance.
Well, if it wasn't for Farm Uni, she wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Well, we love having you here. And what was your kind of first impression when you started working here at Zaman?
I really, really liked the open communication here. It was like, everyone was like, if you have any question, just ask. Also, if it's regarding your department, if we cannot help you, we will find someone who can help you. And it was really, really nice, because sometimes I have the feeling that onboarding is like an annoying part of a new job. And it begins with, you have to know everything and you have to get introduced to everyone. But here was like, if you have any questions, just ask. Everyone I was introduced to was like at the end always like, if you have something, just tell us.
Yeah.
So it was really, really nice, this experience, because in my previous job was like, here's a thing, let's go do it. Let's do it. Yeah. And for me, this is a really, really nice thing. I had this really early, I had this feeling that I want to work in a company where there's this open communication, because I don't like this. At the end, you don't know if you're doing it right or wrong.
Yeah.
If there's something, you can talk to someone. And it's like,
I think it's really key as well as just an overall general industry theme is around that transparency.
yeah.
it's often, I think, it's a term that's thrown around. You must have full transparency, everything must be documented. But it's not just that. It's also the importance of transparency in conversations, in honesty in conversations. And that's something that I think in the onboarding plan here, because the onboarding plan here is quite extensive.
Yes.
6-month program that everyone goes through, where it's not just around their job role and learning the technical skills. It's about company culture, soft skills, values. And one of the big ones is honest communication and transparency, because at the end of the day, when you are a part of creating products that impact on the health and safety of people, everyone has to know everything that's happening. Even if I make a mistake in something, I have to have the courage and the confidence to stand up and say, I've potentially created a deviation here, or there's an incident, I need to register this, and go through the process of resolving that. And that comes with transparency. With your job that you had previously, you mentioned that you're doing pharmacovigilance.
Yes.
What, when you're looking at a role that is really specifically just around pharmacovigilance, and then you have one that is kind of around quality assurance, which can mean many different things across many different projects, what's the big differences that you see between those two roles?
I would say, the previous role was like really specific. I mean, it was also project work, and as well as different projects, different clinical trials, sometimes post-marketing. But at the end of the day, it was always like feeding the database with side effects.
Yeah.
Like writing the report. I mean, sometimes the assessment was really interesting, but this was the task of the physician.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a safety specialist, it was then like, I don't want to say it was boring, but it was not really challenging me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if you are doing like this work in the quality assurance department, there's so much tasks to do. And since this is also a living process, you always have to learn something new. The regulations change, the guidelines change, the laws are changing, and the whole world is changing. And regarding to this, there always must be you must be aware, you have to learn new things. And this is also a thing I also love about quality assurance. You never you are never at the end.
Yeah.
There's always,
you're always a student.
Yeah, that's true. And I really, really like to learn. So
I think quality assurance as well, we are constantly learning new things and evolving, because as you mentioned, products change, processes change, laws, regulations, systems, guidelines, all these various different things. I know there's a new Annex 1 coming in around laboratory clean rooms in August. And even the universities that I've spoken to, like University of Leipzig, they're having to reteach their students very regularly, because if they do have a focus on quality management or quality assurance, they're constantly having to update what they learn and teach. But it does mean that your job is then super dynamic all the time. You're never stuck in kind of one thing of just doing data entry, or you're stuck in one thing of a particular topic. In quality assurance, you have to understand how all the different moving parts work together symbiotically, the relationships that they have.
Yeah.
If you are working on a product, as an example, we have medical device products here at Zaman. We have to understand the full supply chain and life cycle of that product. And as quality assurance, you guys need to be on top of it.
That's true.
All the time.
You always have an eye on any kind of detail. It's at the end, there is a user, there's a customer, there's a consumer. You have to be careful. It's like, there's no other chance. You have to be always on the newest techniques and on the newest challenges, because you also want to improve yourself, improve your products. And there's always like a responsibility behind that.
I think that's also one of the key elements in the ISO principles for a quality management system is around continuous improvement.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's not just a matter of putting a process in place or making a product and say, cool, that's done, that's the end of that. you have to constantly review to see if there's ways to do things better, or if there are deficiencies in your process, if there are deviations or incidences that are coming out of that, non-conformities or such. And so that was the biggest thing I think I saw when I first came to work in the industry. Is I thought working in, because I did business development and business improvement, which is a bit different to quality assurance. And I thought, who would want to work in quality assurance? This seems like on the outside, like it would be a very kind of stiff and stale job. But with working with Marco very early on, back in the day now, I learned super quick that it covers a variety of different areas.
Things, yeah.
And there's also a variety of different people and departments involved in it as well.
That's true. And you always have to think about that it's always a life cycle. Sometimes you think in theory, okay, if I do it like this, the product will be perfect. But if you then release the product, and then they can feedback from the market, and then you have to rethink again. And this is the thing I really like about this, because it's never like the things in theory are always never like in the practice.
Exactly.
So it's always a living process, and it keeps you always thinking. And this is something good. You don't be like in your corner doing like some stuff.
You're just doing your entry and then
typing in everything. It's just really a living process. And this is really, really exciting every time.
Yeah. I think that's a big misconception when people step out of university and they're wanting to have certain roles in the industry. And then these roles don't get filled because they don't, on the outside, get taught as being dynamic, very engaging and diverse roles. And so there is a massive shortage for people in quality assurance in the industry. It's a very hard job to fill for companies. So if you're wanting to take advantage of that gap out there in the workplace, then, I recommend you getting up to speed on this. In stepping into the industry as a quality assurance specialist or manager, what's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned so far?
So far, as I mentioned, I'm like 1 year here, but I learn a lot of stuff. And this is also really, really interesting because you don't stop learning. But I would say one of my biggest challenges was to organize myself, because laws, regulation, guidelines always are connected to timelines. And then you have timelines here, timelines there, you have to fulfill them. And especially if you're also not additionally working with external projects, then there are additional timelines. And it was not like that I don't kept the timelines, but I have to be more organized so I don't get stressed. And like at the end of the day, it was that...
You got to keep that calm.
You have to breathe. It's like you have no one day it must be finished in 1 day, but now I'm organized, I'm planning my things, and I knew, okay, this task has to be finished next week. Okay, then I just planned that I would do this then today. I'd start with the work today, and then the next one has like 2 weeks. Okay, then I will do it afterwards. So this is also like, it's sometimes really crazy how much timelines you have. If you're doing complaints, if you're doing deviations, and then you have external projects, you have to also create documents, finish documents.
And particularly when you're working with external parties, if you are a consultant and you're working as a project lead or such, is you have those things that we call SLAs, service level agreements, and certain amount of hours that you have been contracted to in a week. So they say, okay, we have 20, 30 hours for your week, but we have 40 hours worth of workload, and then you have to try and manage your timeframes, all of that. Little shameless plug. If you do want to learn more about time management, head over to farmuni.com and take our free time management courses. And when we're talking about the biggest lessons for yourself, what would be for people who are going to step into quality assurance, whether they have studied or whether they're going to study to step in this, in regards to the individual and the person, what are some things about themselves that they should work on or factor if they're wanting to step into QA?
As we talked about, at the end, it's about a customer, a patient, a consumer. You have to be picky. You have to love details, because sometimes you have like a lot of documents you have to check but you have to be picky. It's like not like, yeah, okay, today this is okay, but no, you have to be like really strict with that, and you have to check if everything is correct, is everything regarding the regulations, the laws, because at the end we're talking about a product who will be used by a human, and so this would be one of the biggest thing I would recommend to a person. If you are not the character who is like not into details, then I would say maybe this is not a field for you. But yeah, it's really, really important to be picky, I would say.
So if someone has attention to detail, good time management, loves the challenge of working on multiple different topics at multiple times, loves learning, loves growth, loves development, then quality assurance is the place to go.
I would say yes.
Yeah. Also, it's not bad money. I had a wonderful learning experience over the past 4 years here at Zaman of delving into quality assurance and as a quality manager, as such, the qualification profile that I have. For me, it was a 4 years on the job kind of learning. And you have a master's in quality assurance?
I study, my master's degree was called analytical chemistry and quality assurance, because everywhere where you're producing, you need quality assurance, quality control. And this is really, really important. And I would say this is a really, really good thing, because we had a lot of scandals in the past.
Yes.
Like, I think one of the famous one here in Germany is the Contergan scandal, which was the
thalidomide?
Yes. And you see that it's really, really important to check everything before you just tell it to persons, to human beings. And
that's also before they really had pharmacovigilance in place, like regulations about pharmacovigilance. If anyone doesn't know about the thalidomide and Contergan scandal, I highly recommend you read on it. But we do have some of it in our GMP courses around the history and why GMP is so important.
So it was just not make up out of nowhere. There happened something, and this is good that this is a living process. And and there's a lot of changing in the world, and you have to keep on track. You have to. It's like at the end you saw some really, really bad results if you're not doing it.
And also because we're living in such a globalized world now that, you know, our supply chains are not just within one region of Germany or Europe. The supply chains are globally. We could have some raw materials provided by one supplier in a country and then shipped somewhere else, and then it's manufactured, and then it's shipped somewhere else to be stored, and then it's shipped somewhere else to be sold or marketed, etc. And so I think the importance of what you mentioned earlier is that customer focus in mind, patient safety in mind, having attention to detail is going to make the world of difference when we're creating products that can impact on people.
Yeah. And sometimes maybe quality assurance has like this boring feeling, but you have to have always like the big picture in your mind. And it's not just doing some documents. This document will control the process. This process is then controlled, and you get then a safe product. So you always have to have like these things in mind. So
so keep your patients in mind, people. Well, thank you very much for this wonderful, informative chat. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you today. And thank you everyone out there for joining us on the next episode of Let's Talk Quality. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments below if you have any questions, or if you want to just shout out and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, peace.